Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, Friend, Beloved God, Guru Preceptors, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, Beloved Gurudev, Paramhamsa Yogananda Ji, Saints and sages of all religions, dear friend and guide Swami Priyananda, humbly we bow at thy feet. O great ones, thank you for your divine love, divine friendship, divine wisdom. May we always live our life constantly tuning into thy guidance, always living in thy presence, each moment practicing the presence of God and Gurus in our lives, always keeping our highest potential as a goal in this lifetime. Help us, release us from this delusion, bring us home. We are thine, be thou eternally ours. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. As always, we'll start with a chant.
Doors to open themselves, all the lights to light themselves, all the doors to open themselves, all the lights to light themselves. Darkness like a dark bird flies away, flies away. Darkness like a dark bird flies away, flies away. Who is in my temple? Who is in my temple? All the doors to open themselves, all the lights to light themselves, all the doors to open themselves, all the lights to light themselves. Darkness like a dark
Bell खराब है. Thank you.
flies away, flies away. Darkness like a dark bird flies away, flies away. Who is in my temple? Who is in my temple? All the doors to open themselves, all the lights to light themselves, all the doors to open themselves, all the lights to light themselves. Darkness like a dark bird flies away, flies away. Darkness like a dark bird flies away, flies away. Who is in my temple?
Pausing here for a moment, sitting up straight, gazing up at the point between the eyebrows. Tuning into this chant, who is in my temple? All the doors to open themselves, all the lights to light themselves. Darkness, like a dark bird, flies away. Who is in the temple? When we have God, Gurus in the body temple, All the lights, the chakras, the astral body light up. And all darkness of Maya flies away. Darkness, like the dark bird, flies away. And we live in light, the divine light. It's a beautiful chant. As you gaze at the point between the eyebrows, feel yourself filled with light, God's light, filling each atom of the body, within and without, driving away the darkness of delusion, filling with the light of wisdom. Mind completely still, heart without any ripple, opening the heart's door for the Guru to take charge of our lives. Om Shanti Shanti. So last chapter was a very important, all the chapters were important, but this is something especially for a disciple. Master always used to say, stay in tune. Stay in tune. He once told one of the monk that you will be liberated. And when the other monks asked, what about me? What about me? He said, all of you will be liberated if you are in tune. So the most important thing, apart from us doing our practices, techniques, kriya, but what is most important is being in tune with what the Guru wants us to do. Everything is in tune with the Guru's wish, Guru's guidance. And even the meditation, as we discussed in the last session, that Master has written in his poem Samadhi, that by deeper, longer, thirsty, Guru-given meditation. So even the meditation, the depth of the meditation is given by the Guru. So more we stay in tune with the Guru, the more we will be. The chances of us progressing really fast and being liberated is really, really high. So that should be our target. And now this again, the next chapter is also a wonderful one. Let us first listen to Swami Priyananda reading the chapter and then we will discuss it.
Chapter 28, Reincarnation. A boatload of fishermen in Encinitas had had a bad day. After hours of work, and very little to show for it, they were ready to go home. Paramahansa Yogananda happened to be strolling on the beach when they brought their boat in. "You are giving up?" he inquired. "Yeah," they replied despondently. "No fish." "Why don't you try just once more?" the master suggested. Something in the tone of his voice made them heed his advice. Going out once more, they got a large haul. And thus was added another puzzling item to the growing legend in the local community of Encinitas about the strange, kindly Swami, around whom things seemed somehow always to happen for the best. To me, this story, which I heard indirectly from some of the townsfolk there, illustrates a basic truth of human life, one that Master often emphasized. No matter how many times a person fails, he need never accept failure as destiny's final judgment on him. We have a right, as children of the infinite, he said, to God's infinite bounty. Failure is never God's will for us. It is a merely temporary condition we impose on ourselves through some flaw in our attunement with cosmic law. By repeated efforts to succeed, we gradually refine that attunement. Try just once more, Master said. If our basic intentions are spiritually lawful, failure simply means we haven't yet succeeded. Life, in other words, gives us our failures as stepping stones to success. In the case of those fishermen, Master's blessings proved a necessary aid in the sense that they helped attune those men's efforts more quickly to what they were already on the way to accomplishing. Had the men themselves not been ready for such a blessing, he would not have given it, which is another way of saying they would not have attracted it. The sensitivity with which one tries just once more, rather than the mere act of repetition, is the real key to success. There are some people who succeed quickly, whereas others struggle unsuccessfully for years. Attunement is the secret. Genius depends far more on attunement than on hard work or intellectual brilliance. And of all existing sorts of attunement, the highest is to be aware of God's power acting through us. There is another aspect to attunement, however, and it too relates to what Master told those fishermen. Try just once more. I had this experience when I tried to give up smoking. It was in Charleston a year and a half before I came to Master. My attempt resembled Mark Twain's rueful comment, "Smoking is the easiest habit in the world to give up. I've done it 1,000 times." Often I would quit in the morning, but with my coffee after lunch I'd think, a smoke now would be very pleasant. And there I'd find myself back into regular smoking. I had one thing going for me, however. Never did I say despairingly to myself, "I've failed." Always I said instead, "I haven't yet succeeded." Thus each failure became an affirmation of eventual success. One evening, after nearly a year of this, I told one of my roommates in Charleston firmly, "I've now given up smoking." Yeah, sure, he scoffed, then sang a line from a popular song. "It seems to me I've heard that song before." But I knew. The next morning I was just as certain. I kept half a pack of cigarettes in my breast pocket and shared them with friends as long as the cigarettes lasted. Never again from that day to this have I ever felt even the slightest desire to smoke. All those affirmations had finally added force to my resolution, making it absolute. In the episode I related in the last chapter about the famous artist whose portrait of Lahiri Mahashai failed to win Yogananda's approval, the master asked him, "How long did it take you to master your art?" 20 years, the man replied. 20 years, Master exclaimed, to convince yourself you could paint? This wasn't at all the comment the artist had expected. Taken aback, he spluttered angrily, "I'd like to see you do as well in twice that length of time." "Give me 1 week, the master replied calmly. The artist, considering himself insulted, left the room. The master then, taking a paintbrush in hand, made several false starts, each time attuning himself more sensitively to the source of all true inspiration. By the end of a week he had completed a portrait which, the artist himself conceded, was better than his own. The important thing in life is to keep on trying, and never to say, "I have failed." Rather, after every setback, one should tell himself firmly, "I haven't yet succeeded." As Master put it in his lessons, the season of failure is the best time for planting the seeds of success. Our ineluctable destiny is sooner or later to find God, for He is our only reality. Reincarnation, then, is a reassuring doctrine for those who wonder, "Will I ever make it?" All of us have an infinite number of chances to improve and to reach perfection. The story of the fisherman is a symbol of God's everlasting willingness to give men that one more chance they need in order to obtain everything they desire from his ocean of abundance. By extension, this story suggests that God's forgiveness, call it rather his loving expectation of us, is eternal. The soul has eternity in which to achieve perfection. One ought never to abandon hope, even if failure dogs him all his life. Through repeated incarnations he can, indeed must eventually, succeed. Yogananda put it beautifully and often emphasized the point. A saint is a sinner who never gave up. On the subject of reincarnation, Indian philosophy seems to be at odds with the Christian teachings. In fact, however, this doctrine is denied only in prevailing interpretations of the Bible and not by the Bible itself. Reincarnation is not an un-Christian teaching, nor, for that matter, is it an un-Jewish one. It was taught by some of the great early Christian fathers, including Origen, AD 185 to 254. Footnote: the Encyclopedia Britannica calls Origen, quote, the most prominent of all the church fathers, with the possible exception of Augustine. Origen wrote of reincarnation, "Is it not reasonable that souls should be introduced into bodies in accordance with their merits and previous deeds?" Including Origen, who claimed he'd received it in an unbroken tradition, quote, from apostolic times. It was not until 5 centuries after Christ, in 553 A.D., at the Second Council of Constantinople, that this doctrine was finally removed from Christian dogma. The anathema pronounced against it was delivered owing to certain political maneuverings, and was less an outcome of theological purism. Scholars have recently discovered that Pope Vigilius, though present in Constantinople at that time, took no part in pronouncing the anathema, and in fact boycotted the council itself altogether. Numerous biblical passages support belief in reincarnation. Footnote: an example. Then Job arose, and rent his mantle, and shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground, and worshipped, and said, "Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither." In other words, into another womb. Job 1:20 and 21. And again, "But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me that is to be the ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting." Micah 5:2. Still in the footnote, "For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear." Matthew 11:13 to 15. And again, "As they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, Tell the vision of his transfiguration, in which he had revealed himself as the Messiah. So tell the vision to no man, until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead." And his disciples asked him, saying, "Why then say the scribes that Elias must first come?" And Jesus answered and said unto them, "Elias truly shall first come, and restore all things. But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them." Then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. Matthew 17:9 to 13. And again, "Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out." Revelation 3:12. The above passages present a small selection only of many in the Bible that demonstrate support for the doctrine of reincarnation. Christian traditionalists would be wise to question some of the sources of their own traditions. Do those sources derive from great saints who knew God? Or are they merely the deductions of rationalists, whose theological conclusions were founded on reason, not on actual spiritual experience? Back to the text. The doctrine of rebirth may be found subsequent to biblical times, in Jewish as well as in Christian traditions. Rabbi Manasseh ben Israel, 1604 to 1657 AD, Jewish theologian and statesman, wrote, quote, "The belief or the doctrine of the transmigration of souls is a firm and infallible dogma accepted by the whole assemblage of our church with one accord, so that there is none to be found who dares to deny it. The truth of it has been incontestably demonstrated by the Zohar and all the books of the Kabbalists. And while modern Jews generally reject this doctrine, rabbis familiar with the spiritual traditions of Judaism do not endorse that rejection. Reincarnation is endorsed in the Shulchan Aruch, which is the major book of laws in the Torah. A student for the rabbinate in Israel once sent me several supportive quotations from this book, including these words from the Sha'ar Hatziyune, letter 6 VAV, quote, "That soul will be sent time and time again to this world until he does what God wants him to do." The student said that his rabbi, after reading this letter, could no longer deny the doctrine of reincarnation. Rabbi Abraham Yehoshua, a Hasidic master who died in 1825, spoke of 10 lives that he had lived previously, concluding, "And so I was sent forth again and again in order to perfect my love. If I succeed this time, I shall never return again." Footnote: Martin Buber, Tales of the Hasidim, New York, Schocken Books, 1948, page 118. Among famous Westerners who have subscribed to this doctrine, the German philosopher Schopenhauer wrote, "Were an Asiatic to ask me for a definition of Europe, I should be forced to answer him, it is that part of the world which is haunted by the incredible delusion that man was created out of nothing, and that his present birth is his first entrance into life." Voltaire wrote, "It is not more surprising to be born twice than once." And the British philosopher Hume stated that reincarnation is, quote, "the only system to which philosophy can so much as hearken," end quote. According to the doctrine of reincarnation, earth life is a school, and as such it contains many grades. The ultimate goal of human experience is graduation from bondage to ego into cosmic consciousness. Stepping stones to this unconditioned awareness are the removal, first, of all confining attachments and desires. Second, the expansion of love. And third, a growing realization that God is the one underlying reality of the universe. The plot of the cosmic dream, the drama of creation, embraces not only biological evolution, but also separate egoic evolution. For the ego to reach ultimate perfection requires many lifetimes. The evolution of awareness begins at the lowest levels of conscious identity. It moves upward automatically at first, through mineral, plant, insect, and lower animal forms, until at last it attains the human level. Footnote: the Hindu scriptures state that to reach the human level requires from 5 to 8 million incarnations in lower life forms. From this point on, evolution ceases to be automatic. Man's brain and nervous system being more highly developed, grant him that specificity of awareness which is called the ego. Man has the ability to exercise intelligent discrimination and has also a certain amount of free will. From this point, he can either speed up his spiritual evolution, delay it, or temporarily reverse it by his own use or misuse of freedom. The results of self-effort are regulated by the law of karma. Parenthesis, Newton's well-known law of action and reaction is a material manifestation of this universal spiritual principle. Close parenthesis. According to karmic law, every action, even of thought, engenders an opposite reaction. God's creation, which is only a dream in the mind of the Creator, maintains its appearance of separateness by the illusion of duality. Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, is in itself one and indivisible. It manifested creation by setting a portion of its consciousness in motion, like waves on the surface of a body of water. Footnote, quote from Genesis, "And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." Back to the text. Like waves on the surface of a body of water, or like the tines of a tuning fork, which produce sound by movement in opposite directions from a state of rest in the middle. No movement is complete in itself. It is always offset by an equal movement in the opposite direction. Karma means simply action or movement. Every action implies movement from a state of rest in the center. It results invariably, sooner or later, in an equal and opposite movement, a reaction in kind. Hatred given results in hatred received. Love given attracts love. Anger, kindness, forgiveness, or help, freely given to others, results in anger, kindness, forgiveness, or help returned, if not from the same people, then from others, since the post to which the action is tied is the originating ego. The response can be delayed indefinitely, however, by what Master called the thwarting cross-currents of ego. In time, as the ego acquires wisdom, it sheds bit by bit its baggage of self-definitions and lets all further actions flow through it without any personal involvement. At this point, even the fruits of action cease to affect one. There is a reaction, of course, but since the causative act was not tied to ego consciousness, its resultant reaction has little or no effect on him personally. Being inwardly free, it is usually to his disciples, tied to him as they are by the bonds of affection, that those benefits revert. The true sage rests unshaken at the calm center of his being, blissful in the realization that he and the ever-free Spirit are one. Spiritually speaking, karma has different levels of manifestation depending on how clearly it expresses the divine consciousness. Love, for example, is a more spiritual karma than hatred, since it reinforces the awareness of life's essential oneness. Hatred increases the delusion of separateness from other people and from God. To tell a truth is a more spiritual karma than to tell a lie, for truthfulness develops a refined awareness of what really is, of the divine reality behind all appearances. Karma then may be described as the system of rewards and punishments which helps the ego ultimately to spurn all personal attachments, and thereby to manifest its innate divinity. Suffering is the karmic result of action performed that is not in tune with a person's intrinsic divine nature. Fulfillment is the reward for living at least to some degree in harmony with that nature. To learn all one's lessons thoroughly requires more opportunities for error and self-correction than one gets in a single lifetime. Often, indeed, more than one incarnation is needed to learn even one important lesson. Reincarnation explains the enormous inequities of health, intelligence, talent, and opportunity one finds in human life. It is, as David Hume stated, the only system to which philosophy can hearken. People often object, if everyone reincarnates, why is it that no one remembers having lived before? The simple answer is, many do remember. In the West, of course, if it is children who claim to have such memories, they soon learn from the disapproval of their elders to keep those claims to themselves. Yet even so, a number of well-documented cases in the West have received considerable publicity. Footnote: books on the subject include 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation by Dr. Ian Stevenson, Many Mentions by Dr. Gina Cerminara, Here and Hereafter by Ruth Montgomery, and Reincarnation in the 20th Century, edited by Martin Ebon. There are many others. Back to the text. Because my own interest in such matters is somewhat well known, a number of people through the years have related to me their own experiences with past life recall. One lady told me that she had once played a piece on the piano for a 4-year-old boy, a student of hers. Matter-of-factly, the child announced, "Oh, I know that piece. I used to play it on my violin." Knowing that he had studied only the piano, she questioned him. The boy demonstrated, correctly, the difficult finger positions and arm movements for playing the violin. "He's never seen a violin before," insisted his mother later. "He's never even heard violin music." One of the most interesting accounts of this nature ever to come to my attention was sent to me many years ago by a friend in Cuba, where it had been reprinted in the newspapers from an article that had first appeared in France. The account tells that a young French girl, the child of devout Catholic parents, had been using recognizably Indian words such as rupee as soon as she was old enough to speak. 2 words that she used repeatedly were Wardha and Bapu. Her parents, intrigued, began reading books on India. Wardha, they learned, was the village where Mahatma Gandhi had established his ashram, and Bapu was the familiar name by which he was known to his intimate friends and disciples. The child claimed that in her last life she had lived in Wardha with Bapu. One day someone presented her parents with a copy of Autobiography of a Yogi, in the latter part of which Yogananda describes his 1935 visit to Mahatma Gandhi in Wardha. The moment the child saw Yogananda's photograph on the jacket, she cried gleefully, "Oh, that's Yogananda! He came to Wardha. He was very beautiful." People who believe they live only once are compelled to compromise their hopes of perfection. Orthodox believers will try to conduct their lives in such a way as to avoid hellfire after death, but most of them, I suspect, are inclined even so to ask themselves pragmatically, how bad can I be, and get away with it? Belief in the principle of rebirth helps one to view progress joyously, without fear and self-doubt. "Is there any end to evolution?" a visitor once asked Paramahansa Yogananda. "No end," the master replied. "Progress goes on until you achieve endlessness." At Mount Washington, reincarnation was normal to our way of thinking. We took it quite in stride if ever Master told us, as he sometimes did, about our own or someone else's past lives. Looking one day at Jan Savage, aged 9, he exclaimed laughingly, "Oh, little Jan is no child. He is still an old man. I once told him I had always wanted to live in solitude. His reply was, "That is because you have done it before. Most of those who are with me have lived alone many times in the past." He made such remarks so casually that it rarely occurred to me to press him for more information. A few others expressed.
Okay, it's a long chapter. Let us stop here, discuss, and if we have time, we will continue, or else we will continue in the next one. So it's a wonderful chapter, so much to learn, so much to discuss. So this first top point, the story that Swamiji writes about the fishermen. Swamiji kind of links it to a much more deeper meaning to it. But right now, if we just stay at the surface where he says that Master said, just go one more time, right? Just that one more time, one last time. Why don't you give it a try? And they came back with a huge howl of the fish. And here says, Swamiji writes, no matter how many times a person fails, he need not accept failure as destiny's final judgment on him. This is such an important point that Swamiji is saying, and that Master is trying to teach. I mean, even though those fishermen were not really his disciples, but it's something like we all need to remember that not to accept everything. Oh, ye to mera karm hai, Bhagwan ko yahi manzoor. That's what most people do, right? When things are not going the way we want it to go, or as we expect it to go. So he's saying we have a right as children of the infinite. He said, to God's infinite bounty. We are children of God. The more we live with that awareness, and not live like beggars asking for, as Master used to say, that if a beggar comes to a king's house, he will get a beggar's, paltry sum that the king will give. But the son of the king, he will receive everything that belongs to the father. So we should live in this world with that kind of awareness. We are all children of God. So he says failure is never God's will for us. Like how we always say, oh, Bhagwan ko yahi manzoor tha. Maybe, God doesn't want me. God is not helping me. It's not that. It is not God's will for us. Again, he's saying it is a merely temporary condition we impose on ourselves through some flaw in our attunement with cosmic law. That's a huge, last chapter we spoke about attunement, right? So if we are not able to, live this life, or, be in tune with Master, it is not Master who is not sending out those guidance or anything. It is we who are not tuning in enough. And here he says, if we are failing, it is because we are not tuning enough to the universe, to what the universe is giving, or the universal law, the cosmic law. If we are not living according to those cosmic laws, we fail. It is our, lack of attunement that we fail. Not because God wants us to fail, or, he doesn't want us to succeed. So here he says, by repeated efforts to succeed. So he's saying, don't give up. Master is saying, don't give up. Even if, multiple times you tried and it's not happened, don't allow that. And more importantly, in our mind, we should not allow that failure consciousness of failure seeping in. So at no point, he's saying, allow that to happen. By repeated efforts to succeed, we gradually refine that attunement. Try just once more. Master said, if our basic intentions are spiritually lawful. So if we are not trying for something that is wrong, that is not dharmic, right? Then he says, failure simply means we haven't yet succeeded. That is all. He says, don't go into the consciousness of failure. Instead, just say, okay, I have not yet succeeded. Always leave it at a positive affirmation rather than affirming and bringing that into our consciousness that, oh, I'm a failure. I can't do it. It never happens for me. He's saying, no, don't affirm those things. And he says, had the men themselves not been ready for such a blessing, Master would not have given it. So for Master to bless us with success, in every, even mundane things, and definitely for our spiritual journey, we have to be ready for it. How can we be ready? In the last chapter, again, we had seen that Master said, don't affirm negativity, don't get into that negative consciousness of moodiness, of talking negative, of criticism, of carping mentality, as Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita. So when we are constantly trying to, to bring success into whatever we are endeavoring to do, we are opening ourselves to receive the blessing that the Guru is always ready to give, right? So he's saying he would not, he would not give if we aren't ready for it, which is another way of saying that they would not have attracted it. We magnetize. So how do we magnetize the Guru's blessings? By being in tune, by doing what the Guru is saying, by he has given us a huge things. I mean, the Kriya Yoga, the meditation, the energization exercises is such a beautiful technique to bring in more energy, to keep ourselves magnetized. As we all know, I mean, even in the regular physics, we know that where there is more energy, there is more magnetism. So Master has given us, this is the ascending age of Dwapar Yuga. He has given us energization exercises for this purpose only. So he always used to say, never affirm fatigue, never say, I am tired. So through energization exercises, we can bring in more prana from this world, from the universe, bring it into ourselves. And when we are more energetic, when we have more energy at our disposal, we are more magnetic, right? When we are more magnetic, we attract success, we attract what we want, we attract the Guru, we attract Guru's blessings, his guidance. So it's about being magnetic to attract these things. He says the sensitivity with which one tries just once more, not giving up, rather than the mere act of repetition. So even meditation. So I mean, yeah, I have to meditate every day, twice a day, I have to do Kriya. But rather than it being just a repetition, okay, it's time to meditate, I sit down and meditate. Rather than doing it with sensitivity, just once more to find God, just once more to attune myself with my Guru, to commune with the Guru, once more, but with that sensitivity. I want to do it. I will be I will be able to commune with Guru. I will be able to commune with God. I will offer myself with that expectation, more than expectation, with an offering. See, and the sensitivity with which one tries just once more rather than the mere act of repetition is the real key to success, and in everything. It's not just in our meditation or in our spiritual journey. It's just about everything. He says there are some people who succeed quickly, whereas others struggle unsuccessfully for years. Attunement is the secret. Attunement to the Guru's guidance, attunement to the secrets of this universe. What is this universe trying to tell us? He says genius depends far more on attunement than on hard work or intellectual brilliance. Einstein said that, the theory of relativity came to him in a flash, right? What they do is they keep, we all know that the story of bulb, how the bulb was created. He didn't give up. I mean, he did some multiple trials and it didn't happen. His assistant said, let us just give up. He didn't give up. He just didn't give up. He didn't affirm failure. And then it happened. It just happened one day. It landed on them, how to go about it. Archimedes, he tuned into the theory, and we all know that he ran out of the bathtub crying, Eureka. It landed on them. They're so in tune. They're so constantly thinking, constantly getting into the heart of the topic of what they believe is there, and keep going more deeper. And as he says, sensitively tuning into that thing or whatever they're trying to discover, it reveals itself. And similarly, on the spiritual path, we are trying to find God. God will reveal himself. How more and more we are in tune and sensitively approach our spiritual quest for God, he will reveal himself, right? So he's saying the main point is he's trying to say is attunement is the secret. And he says of all the existing sorts of attunement, highest is to be aware of God's power acting through us. So the more we live our life, we function through this, as Master has given the prayer, I will act, I will think, I will act, but guide thou my reason. I will reason, I will act, but guide thou my reason, will, and activity to the right thing to do. At all times, in everything, understanding that it is God's power that is flowing through us. It's God. And when we say God, we say Guru, it's the same thing, right? Guru is the most purest channel to God's divine will. So, the more we tune into them and the more we remember that it is really God's power that is acting through us. Like Master, his most prominent, we can say, disciple, Rajrishi Janakananda, he was a multimillionaire and he was very dedicated to the path. He would meditate and he was Jivan Mukta even before he left. But Master would always tell him, don't forget where your power comes from. And like a little child, Rajrishi Janakaranda would always say, yes, Master, it comes from you. Power comes from the Guru. We should never forget that. God's power is acting through us. The Guru's power is acting. The more we live our lives with that attunement, with that thought, it becomes more easy to tune in more sensitively. And here he says, there is another aspect to attunement, and that too relates to what Master told to those fishermen. Try just once more. And here he's saying, he's talking about again affirmation that I was just mentioning. Always affirm positively, even if like Swamiji gives his own example of how he wanted to quit, and many times he tried and he couldn't, but he says, I never affirmed I have failed. Every time I would say, I haven't yet succeeded. And then finally one day when, his friend is laughing, oh yeah, I've seen this happening many times. But Swamiji says, but I knew I had, because that all that efforts, even though he had failed, had given that momentum to that one day when we finally was able to completely break that habit. So every effort is important. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is saying, oh, I it didn't happen. So the more we say, oh, this time I haven't yet, but that keeps adding. Finally, one fine day we are able to break a habit, when we are talking of habit. And the spiritual journey, Krishna says that no step on the spiritual journey is ever wasted. So even if, in one lifetime we did progress to a certain degree and that person passes away, the next lifetime he's able to pick up. It's not like he has to start from the start. He just picks up from where whatever direction he had already started, and then picks up from there. So no effort is ever wasted. So these are important things we have to remember. He says all those affirmations had finally added force to my resolution, making it absolute. So Swamiji also gives various other techniques also, how to make the affirmations more effective, but that's for another day, where he talks about conscious mind, bringing the subconscious mind and also the superconscious mind into play to make them more effective. So, and he last time also we had spoken about the master painting. What he did, he tuned into, he's saying that the painter got very angry when he said, oh, it took you 20 years to convince yourself that you could paint. And when that man challenged master, he says, he then taking a paintbrush in hand made several false starts, each time attuning himself more sensitively to the source of all true inspiration. It is all there. Even if we can say, oh, I'm not creative at all, I don't, all of us know it all. We are all children of God. We know everything. It's just that, we have conditioned ourselves to thinking, oh, this, I can't do this, it's not my cup of tea. I'm not creative. I'm like this. Each one of us can do it as long as we are able to. And when we say that, we tune sensitively, what does that really mean? Since source, the intuition is there, we have to tune into that intuition. How do we do it? We have to calm our mind, right? We calm our mind, and with immense concentration is when we can, with the restless mind, we cannot achieve anything. So that is the calmness of the mind, and concentration is the key again to tune to, to the source, he says, of all true inspirations. And he says the important thing in life is to keep on trying and never say, I have failed. Masters, this is a beautiful thing. The season of failure is the best time for planting the seeds of success. Some people, if we see in this lifetime, not having much done some major thing, they seem to succeed. They, whatever they touch, they're able to um, succeed in that. And we sometimes wonder, like, oh, he didn't seem to have done anything, how come he? So it's because they have worked at it in a previous incarnation. They have worked at it without allowing that thought of, I have failed. So even they might have failed, but having planted the seed of success in this, whatever they touch, they are able to, achieve that success. So it's these are very important points that he is talking about here. So and then here Swamiji is taking us into a much more deeper aspect of what Master has said to those fishermen. Even though the story of fishermen and getting fish he's talking about, but he says this is much more deeper, where God is giving us the opportunity in every lifetime. Try once more, because we all come here with big, I'm going to find God, I am going to find success, I'm going to, and then, somewhere along the path, the disappointment steps in, or we just get carried away into this delusion of Maya, and we are not going where we are. God wants us to come back. That is, he put us in this maze, but he wants us all to come back to him. But we are kind of, happily or not so happily suffering, going around in this maze of life and death again and again. And every time God is giving us one more chance. Try once more. That is what is like infinite love, unconditional love that he is giving, the Guru is giving us. So he's saying that our ineluctable destiny is sooner or later to find God. That is, every soul's destination is one, to find God. Now, whether a soul goes straight to God, or like most of us going round and round and round in circle till the soul says, okay, I have, this is it. I mean, I want to way out. That can take incarnations of going around. But at some point, the soul says, I'm done. I want to way out. And till then, but so, the point is millions of incarnation. Every incarnation is allowing us. Try once more. Maybe this lifetime you will be, wanting to get back. But many of us are, just going around in circles. The soul has eternity in which to achieve perfection. That is the final destiny, that is the final goal of all souls. And he has given us, there's no deadline. You take millions of lifetime, 2 million eons, no deadline to this. It's not like, oh, if you haven't come by this time, you're not allowed in. He will allow in whenever we are ready to come in. One ought never to abandon hope, even if failure dogs him in all his life. Through repeated incarnations, he can, he says, indeed must eventually succeed. Yogananda used to say, that is anyway, the final destiny is to find God. Rather than eventually, why not now? Why? I mean, it is not if we will find God, but when we will find God, right? So why not now? Why waste incarnations trying to go round in circles, which anyway, this world is never going to give us that perfect happiness that all souls are seeking, right? That can only be found in Satchidanand, in God. Satchidanand is, as Master defined, as ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. So he says, a saint is a sinner who never gave up. So, we all we all come on this path. In this, I'm just talking about one incarnation, we come on the path, we will learn Kriya, and then, somewhere we start going off. But the point is, rather than feeling guilty about, oh, I have not been meditating, I did, I have not done Kriya. He says, a saint is a sinner who never. How do you become a saint? By not giving up. Okay, I didn't do it. I just do it rather than feeling guilty. Or what do I do? Or why, who, I'm so bad. Just pick up. Just pick up. Just start doing it. That's all. That's what makes a saint. And we are all potential saints, right? We are all that. It's just that we are kind of lost in our own self definitions. We have created a maze around ourselves. And he says that Swamiji then goes on to show that there is not much. The Indian philosophy is very clear about all these things, but it's not that the Christian philosophy didn't have it. It's just that at some point it was removed from the Bible also. And when we talk about the Indian philosophy of karma and reincarnation, there are primarily these three main, out of the 6 philosophies, the main philosophies, Master said, are Sankhya, then there is Yoga and Vedanta, right? So Vedanta is the destination, as I just mentioned, that is the end of all knowledge. Where do I need to go? What is my final goal? Is Vedanta. And yoga it tells us how to reach there, right? Sankhya is the philosophy that says why we need to find God, why we need to reach that end is because of all, the suffering that the soul goes through in this constant coming and going of reincarnating again and again is the reason that, that we need. Sorry, somebody's unmuted. So, and he says that, technically, even Bible talks about it. Jesus had spoken about it. And he talks about all the thing that we read about. So, it is not a new concept for the Christian world also, though it has been, kind of removed from that. And here, Swamiji goes on to write that according to the doctrine of reincarnation, earth life is a school, and as such, it contains many grades. The ultimate goal of human experience is graduation from bondage of ego into cosmic consciousness. So, like how a child goes to school, right? And then, you go from class 1 to 2 to 3, and then, go into colleges and college. And if the child fails in any grade, he repeats it. So this earth life, we come back into this earth life because there are many unlearned lessons, right? What is karma? As Swamiji writes, karma simply means action or movement from that state of rest at the center. The center is our astral spine, and that's where, it's the causal spine, the astral spine, that is the center. That is why Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra writes that yogas chitta vritti nirodh. When there is yoga is the neutralization of the whirlpool of the chitta, the heart. When that is neutralized, he goes on to say that the seer rests in tranquility. That's it. That is the ultimate state. And when we are not that, when we perform with, and what is it tied to? The karma is tied to the ego, which Master said is at the medulla oblongata of us. So the karma is tied to the pole. So all that we have done in various incarnations is all there. The blueprint of that is on our astral spine at various chakras. It's distributed there. And what holds that together is the ego, right? So he says every action implies movement from a state of rest in the center. And invariably, sooner or later, in an equal and opposite movement, a reaction in kind. So if I have acted in hatred in some lifetime, it has to come back. In kindness, it has to come back. Good or bad has to come back as long as I am acting out of my ego. I did it. it happened to me. Somebody did this to me. How can they do it to me? How dare they do this to me? I am so hurt. So I have to come back. He has to come back, and I have to give it back to him. Or somebody takes that position. So Swamiji once talks about that he dreamt that there was some person who Swamiji loved a lot as a friend, and that person betrayed him. And Swamiji felt very hurt, but then he felt that now I'll have to come, we will have to reincarnate so that I can do the same thing to him. He said, I don't want to do it again. So he forgave that person and withdrew him from that equation. So that person will still have to go through that karma, but somebody else will play that role for him. Swamiji excluded himself from that loop. Otherwise, we keep coming back in this loop, right? I do, they do, I do, good or bad. It's the same thing. They do, or they will, somebody else in their position, and they will take their part and do it for us. So we will keep going through this loop till one day we say, okay, I'm done with this. I don't want to do it. Somebody has done something wrong for me. It's okay, I forgive. I don't want to be part of this karmic cycle again and again. The moment we extricate, that is where, once we have learned, karma is basically a mental tendency, as Master says. I have a mental tendency, I will attract that thing because I did it at some point, or I have certain, I went through certain things. I have a mental tendency, it will come back to me. Karma is basically a school, as we said. It is a lesson. Till we learn that lesson, it will keep coming back. Some of the karma we find keeps coming back again and again. It is because we have not learned that lesson. The moment we have learned that lesson and said, okay, I'm done, I understood, I don't want to partake in this, I forgive, or whatever is we try to do, outcome, get out of it. There is no ego to which it stops coming. That's it. And Master goes on, before we even talk about karma, he says the plot of the cosmic dream, the drama of creation, embraces not only biological evolution, but also separate egoic evolution. And here he says how this creation was made, that God is this pure spirit. It's like, vibrationless spirit who then says, I want to enjoy myself through many. So just a part of this pure vibrationless spirit, he vibrates. And he says in that vibration, the creation happened, right? And the first, and everything is God, right? The part that is vibrating is also part of God's consciousness only. And he says that, various things, the evolution of awareness begins at the lowest level of conscious identity. Everything is about how aware is the consciousness. So it moves upward automatically at first through minerals, plant, insect, and lower animal forms until at last it attains the human level. Master said that God sleeps in minerals, dreams in flowers, awakes in the animals, and in human is fully awake, right? But unfortunately, most humans are not in that fully awake this thing. That is where once we come into the human body, brain, and the nervous system is the only one now, the nervous system that has a potential to be fully aware of who we are, full expression of that consciousness of God. But then what happens is, and that is why every act we perform till coming to the human level, whatever the soul does, as animals, they eat other animals, it is a mass karma, so it doesn't stick to them. But the moment that soul comes into the human existence, which he says it takes 5 to 8 million incarnations in lower life forms before we come to the stage of human evolution. It is a very blessed, we have gone through it all. Finally, we have that potential now, reached a stage where we have the potential to become sons of God. But then, every act then becomes, it sticks to us. He says, from this point, evolution ceases to be automatic. Man's brain and nervous system being more highly developed grant him the specificity of awareness, which is called the ego. And when he starts, so God has given man the free will. When he starts acting on that free will, he is bound. The karma starts sticking to him, the good and the bad, right? And he says from this point on, he can either speed up his spiritual evolution. Till then, till human evolution, it was natural, it was happening automatic. At this point, he can either speed it up, he can delay it by being caught going round and round because he is acting out of his ego, or even temporarily reverses when he is very acting very evil. Sometimes they even go back to a couple of master said just one lifetime, one step back into an animal and then again come back. He's again given a chance. Very few would really go back to the very start of their evolution of an insect or something. But then why lose the incarnation that we have finally come to as humans? So he's how do we do it? By his own use or misuse of freedom, the free will that God and Guru give us. How do we use it? Do we use discrimination and say, no, I don't want to do this. I want to find God, or just go around acting out of our ego and keep falling back and keep being caught in this constant cycle of delusion that we will be caught up in. And he says here, that's what he says, that since the post to which the action is tied to is originating in the ego, so that is where that is the post. In time, as the ego acquires wisdom, it sheds bit by bit its baggage of self-definitions and lets all further actions flow through it. See, that's the point. I am acting, I am doing it, this happened, he did it to me, versus whatever he's doing, he's allowing that. It's like, it's like when we read a novel, we read a book, we just flow through it, right? We are like kind of a witness to what is happening to it, is written there. So when the person, the ego, there's no ego, he allows, the master allows certain things to happen through him. That is the difference. And when a person is able to do that, there's nothing to stick to him then, because there was no ego in the first place. So there's the action flowed through him. So there is no ego to mark him there, right? Without any personal involvement. At this point, even the fruits of action cease to affect one. There is a reaction, of course, but since the causative act was not tied to ego consciousness, its resultant reaction has little or no effect personally. Being inwardly free, it is usually to his disciples tied to him as they are by the bonds of affection that those benefits revert. This is something very important. So this is what we have to try. So the more we live in attunement to the Guru, to attunement that it is Guru who is, or God who is performing this act through me, or he's thinking through me, or acting through me, willing through me. The more we act through his guidance, it will not stick to us. There's this beautiful story, I think we will end with this. This is a beautiful story of these gopis who bring butter for Krishna. Krishna loves the butter. But that day, the Yamuna is overflowing. They are not able to cross, and Krishna is on the other side. So they think, what do we do now? And they see this sage sitting there. They go and request him. He says, yeah, I will help you, but if you need help, then you have to give me also the butter. So they say, okay, have. But then he keeps having, he keeps eating. I mean, almost everything is finished, little bit only is left, and they are getting very worried. I mean, what is left for Krishna if he finished everything? So they're kind of livid with this guy. But he then gets up all full and he says, Yamuna, if I haven't eaten anything, part. They say, yeah, fine. You haven't eaten anything. You have finished everything. But Yamuna parted. They're very surprised. And they go across and reach the other side. Krishna is lying under a tree, very, lying down, like how we, have a full meal and people, have a good rest. And they say, oh, Krishna, we have come. We brought butter for you. He says, no, I can't have more. That fellow across that river, he fed me so much of butter. I can't have more. That's when they realized. And that is what we are talking about here. Ved Vyas, that sage across that river was Ved Vyas. So nothing stuck to him. It wasn't him eating. Every morsel he was eating, he was offering it to Krishna. Nothing stuck to him. And Krishna received it all. So every act that we perform, if we act with that consciousness of God acting through us, or anything happening to us, good or bad, it's God who is giving it to me in that form. That there must be some lesson that God wants me to learn, and that is why this is happening. What is it? If we are not able to understand, ask Guru, what is it? What is it I need? You want me to learn through this experience? Or if some karma coming, then we say, oh, thank you that this has come. I need to learn a lesson and move on. Well, how do we move on otherwise, right? So the more we live with that freedom, less from the ego and more, it's a practice, right? It is bit by bit as it sheds its baggage, is what he's saying, and allows all further actions to flow through it. We will be free. There will be no more karma attaching to us. Then when there is nothing like that, he says, so masters, when they act the good, it's always a good action. And since all of us disciples, we are tied to him through the bond of love, it accrues to us, because nothing, he doesn't act for himself. All his good karma he passes on to his disciples. So we need to be counted as his disciple. The more we are in tune with him, the more he will be able to give us his good karma. His, the more we are receptive, we will be able to receive, and more we live with that it is God and Guru who is acting through us, the more we will be free, the more quicker will be our evolution in finding God. So with that, let us stop today's session. Thank you for joining. We will
Thank
continue.
you so much, ma'am.